Hey Rockstars, Lid Shaw. I'm here again at AES New York City 2017. This is our third day, and I'm here with my good friend Matt McGlynn of Roswell Pro Audio.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate you visiting.
Yeah, good to see you, dude. You got a great setup here. Would you like to show us? I know we've got some new stuff to show with the Mini K47. I thought we'd just jump right in and talk about it.
Yeah, so we've had this mic for about 3 years, but we had sold out over the summer, and the reason we sold out is because there were some things about the mic that bugged me, and I wanted to make them better. And I think kind of the brand's values and mission is always to make things as much better as we can. I don't ever want to be stuck making something because that's the way we used to make it. So what we did is we took the very popular model that we had, and we changed everything that I hated about the old one. So we had a flat black paint job, and it was okay. I didn't want it to be super glossy, glitzy, because it's a microphone, for God's sake, you know. But what we did have was a paint job that you could scratch with a fingernail, and it showed marks, and that was a bummer. So what we did is we went with the powder coat finish. So it's like a black speckly powder coat, and it's very durable, and it works really well. So that's one thing. Next thing we did was we redesigned the entire circuit board around a really nice pair of polypropylene signal caps. So those two big red capacitors in the middle of the board are from Germany. So we bought them in Germany and then designed the entire circuit board around them. We made some other changes that are harder to see. One thing I'll point out, just because I love the Rockstars so much, I haven't really mentioned this anywhere else, is this little guy is a voltage control, which allows us to fine-tune every microphone. So every mic that before we sell it, I fine-tune that to make sure that the entire production run is really consistent in terms of its output level.
Nice, but don't try that at home, Rockstars, yes, right? Leave it to the professionals.
Yeah, it's best to leave that alone. It's a helpful thing for us. But it means that the product is even more consistent than it used to be from one mic to the next. It also helps us with matching. So those are the internal changes. It has the same great capsule in it, which is what gives the mic its sound. And then the other upgrade that we did, two more. One is the shock mount. So we adapted the shock mount from the Delphos. So if you can see it here, it's got the cutaway front end. And this allows you to put the mic right up against the grill cloth of your cab, or if you're singing into it, you don't have a bunch of hardware in your face because the front end of the shock mount is cut away, so we call that the cutaway shock mount. And there's some other benefits to this design. Most shock mounts have a spring clip, and the way that works is there's a piece of spring steel and you put the mic in and then it grabs it. But over time, that wears out, and you turn it over one day and the mic drops out, and that's a bad thing. You don't want your mic to hit the floor. This one is screwed in. The mic actually screws in and is never coming out. So that's a really nice thing. And the other thing we've learned about those spring clip style shock mounts is that the two long handles that you squish to open up that spring can resonate. And the problem with that is your microphone capsule is here, and those two wings are often they're right here. And if they're resonating, the capsule is hearing them sing. So when you're playing your guitar, you'll hit a note that is the resonant note of those two pieces of metal, and suddenly your microphone clip or shock mount is resonating in the audio band. And you won't necessarily hear it all by itself, but it colors the sound of the mic. And so you think your mic has a certain sound, but actually it's your shock mount that has some aspect of that sound. And so this mount doesn't do that. We've got little short, basically self-damping silicone bands that don't resonate, unlike a long piece of elastic cord. Some of those shock mounts, you can pluck those cords and they have a tone. So we don't have that. We don't have those long handles. We don't have the piece of spring steel that loosens up. So a significantly upgraded shock mount. That's part of the deal.
I have to say, as a user, I mean, the fact that you can just put this right up to the cab is awesome. And as a user who's had to try and reassemble on a fallen apart shock mount before, this is fantastic. This is going to be so much easier than anything.
Yeah.
And then also just this ability to screw it in is fantastic. It's so solid, you know. It really bugs me when you get a microphone and it's got a cheap shock mount, and this is really rock solid. So congrats on that. I dig that. So tell the Rockstars a little bit more about the Mini K47. What are some great use cases for this mic if they're thinking about getting one themselves?
So this was an interesting lesson for me. I designed this as the singer-songwriter mic. The idea was you put it on your guitar, you've got it down on your guitar, and it sounds great there, and then you bring it up here and you sing into it and it sounds great there. And not many of those people bought the mic. The people who bought the mic love it on drum overheads, they love it on piano, They love it on acoustic guitar. They love it on mandolin. They love it on dobro. I had a Nashville session dobro guy come across this mic in a studio, Jimmy Heffernan, and he called me up the next day and he said, you know, the studio had this mic. I'd never heard of it. I want to be a dealer. So now he's one of my dealers because he said, I need to tell all my students when they ask me what microphone should I buy for my dobro, he said, that's the mic.
That's cool, man.
I've had a couple of guys put it on their piano and just they phoned me up. They're like, my jaw dropped. It's the best piano sound I've ever heard. And I get that on a bunch of different sources from a bunch of different people.
Well, you know, something I noticed just even putting the headphones on here with this test rig is there's a presence to the mic that immediately made my voice just like come forward in the earphones, and I see how that would work on all these instruments you're describing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, that's the sound of the capsule. That K47 capsule has some presence in the 4 to 6 kilohertz range, which is a really happy place to be. A lot of inexpensive mics, certainly a lot of the things in this price range, because this mic streets for $299. Anything below that price and a lot of things above the price, they have a presence peak at the 8 to 10 kilohertz range, which the first time you hear it, you're like, oh, it's so detailed, it's great. And then later you're like, yeah, my ear hurts. You know, it's fatiguing, the buildup in that 8 to 10 range. So yeah, this has presence in a really useful spot, and it just sounds great on a lot of instruments. I want to give a shout out to Glenn Fricker, who you guys know. I hope all the rock stars know Glenn Fricker. He did, so I'd sent him a pair of minis last year after last AES, and he ended up, I'd asked him to check them out, and if he likes them, do a review video. Not only did he like him, he loved him, and his review video was called "The Best Mic Under $500." So it wasn't a review; it was like it was a testimonial as only Glenn can give.
Called it a charge call.
Yeah, and so, but the thing I love about that video was that he did an A/B comparison on drum overheads against a mic that was my go-to drum overhead mic for years, which is the Octava small diaphragm, and I continue to love that mic. But in his studio, on that drummer, on those drums, the Mini K47 blew them away. It had so much more focus and none of that indistinct kind of roomy sound that the Octava can sometimes have. This was just sharp and focused, and it tends to minimize cymbals, which for most guys is a good thing because you're hitting really hard. And anyway, yeah, so it's great on drums. And but people come to the booth, they say, yeah, I use it on everything. Like one guy said this week, I know you're not supposed to use it on kick drum, but I do, and it's great. So I mean, try it. It won't be right for everything, but it'll work for a ton of things that you don't expect. That's been my experience.
That's awesome. And I have a pair in Nashville at the Toy Box Studio, so I'll be showing you guys a video of those on drums, guitars, everything I can think of very soon coming up. Let the rock stars know again how they can find Roswell online, more about your mics, and where would they go to find one to buy?
Yeah, so as a new thing, Roswell is selling direct. So you can buy direct from the Roswell Pro Audio website. But we're in a bunch of dealers as well. We're in Vintage King, Front End Audio, Zen Pro Audio. Midwood Guitar Studio is one of our new and great dealers. And there's a place in Chicago, Rock and Roll Vintage. There's a place in France, Floating Point Audio, if you're coming in from France. We're at DDD Music in Freiburg. I'm sure I've missed one, and I'm sorry. Look on the dealers page on my website. We're trying to be a bunch of places, so wherever you're happy to buy mics, we're happy to sell them to you.
Right on, so RoswellProAudio.com, yeah?
That's it.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Rockstars, thanks so much for watching. Matt, thank you for showing us
really
around again. Remember to like, subscribe, and drop a comment in the video below, and let us know just what you would use the Mini K47 on in your studio. We want to know all about it. Cheers.